We're going to do some songs. We're going to do some dancing. We're going to listen to music. We're going to have some discussion. And so that's what we're going to do. It's not too formal. So we're just going to have a little party and sing. We have to take care of some message. We're going to dance. We're going to have discussion. We're going to have a message from the president. What I'd like to do is start this off with our inauguration song.
Trumps get thrown out tomorrow, seeing that bottom feeder leave with sorrow will be sweet. I'm thinking about Joe Biden. Hope he'll send the Nazis back to hiding. And no tweets. Far too many have died while Trump lied and failed us. But it's the end of 4 years, and our cheers will be loud. I will be tomorrow. Don't you know that Geraldine Ferraro would be proud? Tomorrow Trump's evicted. I hope he's convicted. Tish James, please lock him away.
Whew. Hell of a decade we've had these past 4 years, am I right? Look, I know they've taken their toll on all of us. I mean, look at me. You guys know I'm only 23, right?
These years Trump's tried to divide and break us, but we've proven him wrong, 'cause we're strong and we say, oh, Trump's holding king, they'll all go, and real Donald Trump we can unfollow. It's a new day, like Donald, by Ivanka, Melania, don't medalla. Just you hold your chin away. Joe Biden and Kamala, they'll be here mañana. Our country will be
That was cute.
You like that? Okay.
That's good.
Okay, good. So what I'd like to do now is go around the room. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your hopes are for the new administration, for the new year, for January 20th, before and after. So my name's Rich Procida. I live here in Whittier. I'm trying to start this chapter here of PDA, and I also do a lot of other activism and stuff. And I'm hoping that we have a smooth transition, and I'm hoping that we keep focusing on democracy and preparing, because I'm afraid that these people will be back. So do we want to go around? Mom, you want to go?
Okay. I'm Dixie Matheson. I live in Montebello, and I'm Richard's mother. And there's a lot of things I'm hoping for. Some like the climate thing dealt with, and some gun control laws passed, and something for the immigration, the children who are separated from their parents, and the Muslim ban canceled. Just a lot of things that need to be straightened out, because a lot of people are suffering. And of course, we all hope the pandemic will be gotten under better control.
Denise, you want to go?
Hold on. Oh, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm Denise from Buena Park, and I'm involved with Indivisible 39 group in my district. And my hope is that when Kamala and Joe come in, that he overturns everything that Trump has done, and that he focuses on climate change and equality and getting money out of politics.
Margot, you wanna, here, I'm unmuting you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Margot Montebello, and my main thing is that I would like the new administration to not be nice. I want them to prosecute whatever they do in every possible way, every single one of the perps of this past TP regime, the past 4 years, the family, the other governors, even the ones who are out there in their hate terrorist groups, they need to be arrested and put in jail. But because everybody else was too nice, and they pardoned bad people, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse, and then we ended up with the T word and the TP regime. Oh, my new comment is they did not drain the swamp, they turned it into a toxic sewer. And we got to clean that all up. And that's my main thing. Okay?
Margot lives in Montebello.
Yeah, I get to go to Dixie's for Zoom things. It's wonderful. I appreciate it so much.
Okay, great. So Ashley, I'm trying to ask you to unmute. I don't know if it's going through to you or not. There you
Hi,
are.
everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, all. I'm joining from Austin, Texas.
Awesome.
Just excited to join you all. And Rich, I love your Santa hat and the wreath, the
yeah, the
Christmas
filter.
bow / wreath going on. I just love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to be with you all. Hoping you're doing well and staying healthy.
All right, great. Okay, so we're going to move to our next subject here. And of course, before that, we're going to lead it off with some music here. So, go.
This is an elite strike force team that is working on behalf of the president and the campaign to make sure that our Constitution is protected.
The circus has only been from one side.
Just like you.
Each morning on TV I lie a little. That way the boss knows what to tweet. Judge just look at the proof or I'll cry. Trump, what you doing to me? He spent all these years straight deceiving you, but we just don't want Trump to leave. So somebody, can anybody find me some fraudulent vote?
Well, he was only the underdog if you believe the mainstream media suppression polls.
We grift hard every day. I lie and I lie and I lie, but every judge just shut me down. They say this case is crazy. They say me and Rudy got no brain. We got no common sense. We got only Newsmax to believe. Please believe us.
The human heart is corrupt.
They're patriots.
There's fraud in every election.
Some fraudulent votes. Find me some fraudulent votes. Find me some fraudulent votes.
Hey, bring out the drunk chick again.
What about the turnout rate? 120%?
Big stack of evidence. It's all right here.
I think all Chinese look alike, so how would you tell?
Casual racism, it's fine. Please don't fire me.
All right. So feel free to dance to these, if you dance, maybe a video next to it, it might look good, but feel free to dance, to sing along with any of these songs. Now, I guess there's been a whole lot of propaganda spread, and a lot of people believe that there was fraud. And so how are we going to deal with this? I mean, we know for one thing that intelligent people can be deceived. That can happen in cults. And what we're dealing with is a type of cult. And what we're going to need to do is do some deprogramming. And deprogramming requires very sensitive. You can't just say, you're in a cult, you're wrong. We can't just say that, and people change because of their relationships, not so much because of, what they've argument or debate. So I'm kind of wondering, and also we're going to need to reach out to the center of the country, because even if Trump doesn't succeed in his auto coup, which is what is going on, an attempted coup, and he's still attempting it, and we don't know what he's going to do. In order to defend against that, both now and in the future, when these guys come back and they're more competent, is to reach out. We need the center of the country on our side. So there's some ideas that bound out there for a truth and reconciliation type of activity. And so I'm just wondering if you guys have any ideas about what we need to do to defend our democracy and protect it from autocratic rulers like Trump and the Republican Party, who has turned to authoritarianism. Anybody have any comments on that?
I say we first clear out the Congress of the members that helped support the overthrowing of the election.
That's important.
Good idea.
Let's see, I'm asking people to unmute because I don't know why it's having me unmute. Anybody have any other comments? If you raise your hand in the, oh, hi, Margot.
Oh, hi. Barbara said to fire them all, send them pink slips and fire them, say you're fired. That was what we got to do to all of them. That's her contribution.
Okay, great.
And term limits and things like that. And don't pay them any money. Just give them basic minimum wage. Oh, that's Buttercup. She agrees. Okay.
Okay.
And nothing after they leave office. Just throw them out to the bus.
Their benefits, their pension, their health benefits.
Yeah.
Right.
For their family.
Okay. And one of the things that I've been looking at is the economic approach that PDA takes and whether it's actually the best approach. In other words, are we going to actually get people to vote for us by appealing to their pocketbooks? I think one of the problems with the economic approach is that it's sort of, well, it makes people into heroes. In other words, if they're not pursuing their own interest, they're a hero pursuing the interest of the nation and the welfare of others. And it's kind of a neo-realistic. We've heard about neoliberal. I just made up a new word, probably neorealism. It's not probably used, but the idea that people actually act on their own self-interest. And I'm not sure if that's actually true. They may act on what they perceive as their self-interest, but a lot of the things that they're doing are not within their self-interest. So, yes. So, and this sort of brings me to the point of another approach, which is a spiritual approach, which, Jesus said, man does not live by bread alone. And so one of the things about the soul of our country, Joe Biden talked about the soul of our nation, something that reaches out to people's hearts, reaches out to the center of who they are. And I think that in one sense, reaching out to the center requires us to engage them where they are. And that I would suggest that we use scripture and the Bible to do that. I mean, it's almost inevitable because that's what they're coming from. That's what they're bringing to the table. We're going to have to talk about it. And we do talk about it. We always say, Well, how come Jesus, why don't you help the poor? You know, how about justice? I mean, all these things, justice, mercy, walk faithfully. They're all political things, and it reaches out to the heart of the nation. So do you have any comments on that? How about you, Denise? You have anything to say?
Not really, but it's just that the Bible, not everybody in the country, uses the Bible. There's different nationalities and different religions.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the Bible is a work of literature, right? So it's not like people don't know it. A lot of people in this country do know what's in there. Secondly, it's not really religious to read the Bible. There are a lot of people who read the Bible who aren't religious. In fact, a vast majority, not vast majority, but a large percentage of scholars who study scripture are not Christians. So, so it's not like we're asking people to change their religion. It's not that. What we're asking is for Christians to be actual Christians. That's what we're asking them, and to define for them what that means based on scripture, their book, speaking to them. And it's not like somehow the Bible is somehow sacred, somehow something. And unfortunately, I couldn't find it. There weren't a lot of Christmas songs, and I found no Hanukkah parody songs or anything like that. So I don't think we're asking people to be Christians, but maybe to recognize that they're better Christians than the Christians are. And the shared story is sort of the center of what they're using against us. In other words, they're using that tool as a weapon against us. And we have to defend ourselves, and we also should use that tool as well. It's been very effective. What was that, Denise?
Well, those are
to counter them.
Yeah, to counter them. Yeah, go ahead, Mom.
those of us who are surrounded by Christians who are Trump supporters. We need to really think about what we can say that would show them what Jesus would really do in this situation. But I don't know, it's really hard because they're so sold on what they believe, because they're part of a cult actually right now.
Yeah. Which brings it, right.
Biblical passages to back up what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of them. I mean, the whole scripture is full of progressive social justice type of, and this idea that somehow the Bible is some evil book and that only creates evil. Well, it does create evil, but it also creates good, like many other things. It's got a split in its personality. And I think by allowing people to use scripture the way they do, we're giving them a pass. And then there's the idea that somebody, I've skipped my mind, that, well, anyway. So I know, Margot, you're Jewish. You want to give us your views?
Maybe she's not there.
There she
there
is.
You.
So Margot.
Margot Malka Davida has been noticing a lot of this interesting thing about religion being used as like a weapon. My God's name is such and such, and if you don't call my God the same name, I'm going to kill you. Or you're a pagan, or you're a native person, so you can't be your religion. It's been awful in this country and all over. There's too many people just blatantly like saying we're superior than you. And I really don't like religion. I'm not even saying the Jewish hasn't been a little bit like that in some ways too. Some of the stories we have in our Torah and our thing, even this one, you got to kill people in order to make sure your religion predominates. And there has not been enough nonviolent ways of resolving conflicts that really should be what I believe is the Christianity way of, if God is our parent, siblings all are we, let me live with my sibling in perfect harmony. But you got to keep working on that. I don't know if anybody's put too much of their mind to that. That's like World Beyond War and things like that are trying to do something. There's always been a few people, but I think we need a lot more of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Communication instead of domination.
And
and
dancing.
The dancing.
Oh,
yes.
actually, music and dancing and food, and that's culture. Exactly. Thank you, Dixie. The nonverbal, the thing of the music can unite people totally. And if we would only focus on that in love of nature and animals and flowers and trees and birds and kind of get in there and sit down and just, yes, thank you. That's the unifying spirit that I call the spirit of life and light. And those are the things we need to coordinate and cooperate with. And the ones who don't have it have a very severe detriment, I believe, and they're disconnected. Maybe they were treated very badly when they were children and they just lost their sense of, wonder and connection. So that would be a very big topic of having ways of discussing this and bringing out workshops and practicing and how to talk with people, listen to people and share with them. Some people don't like dancing. It's like, so scary.
Hi, Gerald. Welcome, Gerald. Hi, you want to share with us? You want to share with us who you are?
Yeah, I'm Jerry Campbell. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. Been active in politics for several years now, most recently in Get Out the Vote with a local 350 Madison chapter oriented toward climate change issues. But my big interest is in getting out the vote and getting people to be engaged in the politics that they can be engaged in. Wisconsin has an election coming up in January. That's a primary for, I believe the major one that will be primaried is State Superintendent of Public Instruction, which is a constitutional office in Wisconsin, and then several judgeships and a whole lot of county level and even town level officials, which have a lot to do with daily life of people. And those elections are notoriously underappreciated and the vote percentages are very low. So I don't know what we can do, but we're going to keep working at that.
Good for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gerald. So what we're doing here, we're talking about the election and singing, and we're dancing, and we're listening to music. And so feel free to sing along, dance along, move your hands, because maybe in the video when it comes out, it'll have the song and pictures of what people are doing. So
well, I'm gonna when I mute, I'm gonna keep working on my lighting scheme here. So we'll that might look like dancing, but I'm not sure it will be dancing.
Right. Well, okay. So what we're going to do now is sing together. Go ahead. We're going to go ahead and do our first sing song.
New Year's wasn't bad, and we dodged World War III. Breonna Taylor was still with us, and George Floyd could breathe. But our luck went downhill. COVID was starting out. Before things got too crazy, my man Kobe said, I'm out. Jingle bells, I can't smell, I'm also losing taste. COVID everywhere, but Trump don't care, he lost the presidential race. Jingle bells, the market fell, unemployment's high.
California
fires make that creepy orange sky. The store won't let me in, 'cause I forgot my mask. 2 months I had no toilet paper, kiss my stinky ass. Wakanda has no king, and Alex Trebek died. 2020 so fucked up, but God, please tell me why. Kamala is here, so is the PS5. Biden took the White House back and hope is still alive. Schools are safer now because we're all locked up. I guess 2020 ain't so bad, my Skechers still light up. Hey, jingle bells, all is well, the year is almost done. The end is near, so have no fear, it's almost 21. Yeah, jingle bells, I just wanna say, we've been through so much this year, it's gonna be okay.
Right. Did you guys hear me singing by accident?
Yep.
Sorry about that. I'm going to check.
Yeah, it's hard not to join in when something's put in front of you like that. So
Yeah. So where'd you go, Richard?
I'm not sure where he went. I do have a couple of party props I could get out. I hadn't thought about that. I haven't worn this very often, and I'm not even sure how to quite put it on.
Testing. There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
You guys can hear me now?
you.
Well, Gerald's going to show us party props.
You can hear me, Mom?
Some of you will. Some
Yeah.
of you who know Wisconsin will know this
My
shape.
speakers.
What are you in that? What is that?
That's a piece of cheese.
Oh,
all right.
This is a winter cheese head with ear flaps, and you can tie it down and so forth and so on. So that you can't tell what it is partly because of my overhead light that sort of lights everything a little too much. So anyway.
That's cute.
You made a response when you heard Wisconsin, Dixie. I'm not sure. Are you from Wisconsin or?
No, I'm from Los Angeles area.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, so I lost my camera.
Oh, you lost your camera.
Well, you had an alternate. Oh.
Yes, I had an alternate, but I lost the camera.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's good.
All right. So let's talk about, our success. I mean, I think we did a lot of hard work. Everybody worked real hard to get this, to win this election. We removed the threat to our democracy. So, and then what are the lessons that we have from this election? I have a few lessons that I've drawn that we may want to speak about, which is one, maybe not everyone needs to be a socialist. That's to the people on the right, socialism is a dangerous ideology, just like for people on the left, Christianity is considered a dangerous theology. So maybe we're don't need that not everyone to be that. And then the other thing is critical race theory, ethnic studies, intersectionality, the anti-racist books and programs. They're not healing our divide if that's what they were intended to do. And maybe they're not all that great, maybe they're not the bee's knees. And then, of course, there's a conflict between authoritarianism and democracy that I think is more central than the conflict between capitalism and socialism. And we have a huge problem with labels anyway, and then name calling on top of that. So these are some of the lessons that I'm sort of drawing out. How about you guys? How about you, Gerald? Do you have any?
Well, I'll certainly say that a lesson that I observed here in Wisconsin is if you make it possible for people to vote, they will. And as you may or may not know, in the lawsuits that were filed here, we had, for the first time I can remember, and I'm 75, I've lived in Wisconsin since I was 27. We had the chance to go to a public park in Madison. Actually, you had a chance to go to every public park in Madison and vote early or register to vote or sign up to get an absentee ballot. That's one of the things we immediately heard from the one of the right-wing think tanks, that was illegal, that we couldn't do that. But at every one of those sites, there was an official from the clerk's office or an elected official who was part of the electoral process. So those all got thrown out. Even the Supreme Court one was partially about that thing that was done. The election was closer in Wisconsin than I thought it might be, but that also is a thing which I think says that being able to vote was easier around the state than the Republicans in our legislature had wanted it to be. And so we had a small margin of victory over President Trump, and but the numbers were huge in terms of our past voting process. So I think that was true. I want to agree with your comment about the how you conduct a conversation about these things. And there's a professor, I think at Berkeley, maybe Stanford, who's a linguist, and he's traveled the circuit for about the last 8 or 9 years, talking about the language of the left that does not work, and so forth. And I just saw an illustration. I use the word democracy pretty openly to mean one person, one vote, and everybody gets a vote. I had a conversation with a colleague who I've been working with on Get Out the Vote, and there was a slogan thrown around that had the word that said climate protection will encourage democracy. And the person who got that message showed it to her husband, and her husband said, "We're not a democracy, we're a republic." Well, that's a perfect example of a conversation that ought to happen about 10 meetings into the digging into what we mean to each other, because it's really easy. I mean, what's a liberal? What's a conservative? And the more language, the more things that get thrown in. Black Lives Matter was a slogan that immediately was targeted. A whole variety of things pop up, and we're not going to build bridges between people that are far apart unless we can find language that gets us listening and talking to each other on a friendly and simple, straightforward way.
Awesome. Thank you. Mom or Denise or Margot, I'll go ahead and try and.
I'm hoping, Trump was the big cause of divisiveness, and he still is. And I'm hoping that some of that can be healed. And we have to do our part by being civil. And
all right, Margot, you have anything to say, Margot?
Yes, I think that it's very important that you can't be nice to mean people, and you have to kind of put up a defense and say, stop it. I don't like it, what you're doing. You're doing wrong. As I'm saying, they've gotten away with so much because everybody's so polite. But if you call them out and say, what you're doing is illegal, you're threatening people with violence, you're discriminating. I don't think we should allow them. We shouldn't be nice. They don't seem to have a conception. I was just listening to something was warning that this is what went on in Germany before, because all the people were complicit. They believed the propaganda. They let people get away with horrible things. No Jewish people would have been killed if the German people had just said, stop it. And the same thing, and I always like to say, Anne Frank would maybe, if the Dutch people had done what the Danes supposedly did and put on yellow stars and pink triangles and whatever, and wouldn't have let the Nazis do what they did, maybe Anne Frank would have been a successful writer and a great grandmother, blah, blah, blah. But no, everybody just went woo, 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 woo. I mean, I even heard of Polish people that it happened that when someone was wearing a fur coat or something, and she was being thrown into a pit or something like that to die, he grabbed her coat and dragged it away and found a docket and that gave to somebody, and then they found each other. I didn't even want to hear that story because it's so pathetic that they should have even allowed it to happen. So I think everybody should be standing up and calling them what they really are and just not being nice. All this words, call them out on their hypocrisy and their meanness. It infuriates me. I'm afraid even because they're being allowed to get away with so much bad things. And I really think we should be a little more assertive, let's say. That's all. And just,
I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree and disagree because I think it's complicated. It's twofold. One is that we going to have to hold people accountable. That's our biggest mistake. We have 3 systems of justices.
That's
for minorities, one for the middle of the country, and then one for our leaders who get to act with impunity. And so what has happened is chaos has been inserted into our government. The very idea of government has been wounded, perhaps fatally wounded. And we're going to have to hold these people accountable. And it's not going to, and some idea that we're just going to let them move on and put it all behind us and try and go forward. That's not going to work. I mean, we're going to have to hold people accountable in order to make our system work. I'm so happy that the Supreme Court at least held up. I think judges, they don't like when somebody thinks they're bought, A judge is independent and they don't like it. I'm glad that they came out and rejected those. And that's going to be a real great help. But in the future, for the future, we're going to might need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission or something in order to make sure that we have that people don't get away with crimes.
Like in our government?
Yes, like in our government, yes.
Well, like in the most recent government, and I'm thinking about the post office as a case study of something we should look at, because I really think that from what I saw, and I have to admit I lean toward the left media, but what I saw, there were lots of everyday people of every political persuasion that were really angry about what they were doing to try to screw over the post office and basically take away the capacity to communicate and vote. It was really pretty interesting to me because it seemed to me to be one of those things which felt like a pretty major shift of defense of the post office. And maybe that's because the people that are left using it are the people who really rose up. But that's maybe a thing we can use to look at an example where somebody really put their fingers into the everyday pie and was mucking around in ways they shouldn't have.
Yeah, it was really scary. I agree with you.
And we're going to do a little dance, okay? The dance is called the Trump Corona flip-flop. And watch the arms, because they do arm hand stuff, and you can do the hand stuff. You don't have to get up and stand up, and you don't have to turn around. They do back up, they do this. So
there's a new Trump dance here to kill your cabin fever. So clear the flow. 6 feet back, ain't no hugs. Back that out, thugs. Strap your mask, folks. Kick back, dude, relax. You could lack a backbone and do this dance. You just shake your rump, make like Trump and flip flop. Corona flip flop, but don't stop. Dance like Trump, shake your whatnot. Loud folks, shift the blame. Buy some votes, make it rain. Showtime, make up facts, no spine. Walk it back. Try spinning till you're tired of winning. Now flip flop.
Is it safe to be holding rallies during a public health crisis?
I think it's very safe. This is a flu. View this the same as the flu. Like a miracle, it will disappear.
People get better just by going to work.
Nobody knew there'd be a pandemic. I've always known this is a pandemic.
Well, he doubled down, doubled back, retweet, delete, retreat, attack. For months that two-bit tiger king was going to rallies, working on his backswing, social distance. Done right, is Trump 6 feet back from the mic. He just stir up drama, bang Obama, and then flip-flop. Corona flip-flop, but don't stop. Dance like Trump, shake your what now? Louder folks, shift the blame, buy some votes, make it rain. Showtime, make up facts, no spine, walk it back. Try spinning till you're tired of winning, now flip flop. Corona, flip flop, but don't stop. Dance like Trump, shake your what now? Louder folks, shift the blame, let them kiss the ring. Keep the change, no one could predict how they did for months. You alone to fix, you was out to lunch. Five the guys with the answers to damn gaslight, windmill, cancer, fool, liberated states from round two, now flip flop.
I don't take responsibility at all.
Okay.
No responsibility.
None at all.
None at all. I learned in the last year from a friend of mine that the secret to dancing is getting your hands out of your pockets.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. I participate with a samba, Brazilian samba bateria when we can get together, which was not very much lately. And one of the things that you're doing is always stepping to keep the beat. They teach you your feet are the thing. So I've danced more in the last 5 years than I ever did in my life, and have to keep my hands out of my pockets. So.
Awesome. You know what? We've got a message from the President of the United States, and he's going to want to share his message. So I'm going to have to share my screen. So let's see. So there may be some international repercussions from this.
You say I don't have the votes and I won't, so I must go away. You cry, you lose, there's no fraud, that's fake news, and I won't say goodbye. I'm so sad. Remember when I had a lead that they couldn't surmount? Now you're making me mad. Magically it disappeared. Now I want a recount. I'll be back. Soon you'll see. Coney Barrett, she belongs to me. I'll be back. Time will tell. Pennsylvania can go straight to hell. I will rise. Joe will fall. All lives matter, but mine most of all. And if you claim I'm done, I will send another China virus to convince you that I won. Blah 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 blah. You can't keep counting ballots after polls have closed. I don't care what the law says, they must be disposed. So no, don't take that ballot, 'cause it's a Biden ballot, a late illegal ballot, a trailing mail-in ballot, another, no, another, no, another. I'll be back. I'll extort. I'll take each and every state to court. I'm a Trump. I'm a threat. I'm a narcissistic prick in debt. Counts are wrong. I am not. I won this election by a lot. And if you still dissent, I will kill democracy to remain the president. Blah 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 blah. Everybody. Blah 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 blah.
You still got it. Yeah, well, that's okay. Oops, what did I do? I lost it. I lost the
Okay.
music.
All right. So we had the president. He promised to be back, but even if he's not back, somebody else is going to be back to do this. And I talked about how chaos has been planted at the center of our government, and people are allowed to act with impunity. And so I'm wondering what type of democracy reforms do we need? And if anybody has any ideas of how we're going to shore up our democracy or protect our democracy. And will Trump, what's going to happen after he gets out, after he's removed from office? Is he going to go to jail, or is he going to be a shadow president?
That's a lot.
Yeah. So what do you
I
think?
think it's an interesting question, and I think it depends a lot on us. I'd like to take some lessons from what I know about the history here in Wisconsin of Joe McCarthy. And when Joe finally went down, he went down very fast. It took a couple of years, but within a couple of years, he was just nobody anymore politically. I mean, he was shown for what he was. And I sent Rich a quick song that I wrote, and I left out one verse that basically says, we are going to demand that he be taken to court. We want to prove that he is the bum and the crook that he said he wasn't all this time. His most offensive statement from the campaign was, "Just trust me." He used to use that all the time. And there's absolutely no reason anybody should trust him. And he's basically shown that in the last couple of weeks. I mean, people are beginning to soften up, even on his supporters, that, this is ridiculous. These lawsuits, the idea that Texas can tell 5 states or 4 states how they should run their elections. I'm thinking that if we're lucky, and luck is always something we got to be helpful or be helped by, that he's just going to implode. He's anyway.
Is he going to go to jail?
Well, what do you think, Denise?
I want him to, but I don't know if he will.
Yeah, there's a lot of complications.
Let me unmute Margot here. You have any ideas, Margot? Our mom?
Oh, yeah, we have to take warning from the past and make sure that we don't let happen the fact that this whole thing was totally against all the different principles of the United States, the Constitution, and it should all be called out and really just held accountable. I keep saying that. We can't pretend that this was not terrible stuff going on, and you can't be nice because, well, it is. I know you said it wasn't fascism, but it is a thing where the corporations pay the bills. They promote everything to make the money. They don't care what happens to everybody else. They give the welfare and the socialism to the military and the corporations, and they don't care about the real people. That's why they're sitting there banging around that they can't give people. We're the only country in the world practically that doesn't help the people who have lost their jobs or been affected by the virus. Of the other countries giving partially of the incomes, that wages, and you look on, you see the charts. No children are starving too badly in most other countries except India, of course, which always has starvation. But I'm saying we have a priority of money for the corporations, capitalism, and not, which really is, everything they call progressive here and say is bad is what other countries just do for ordinary people. It's an ordinary thing. And I think we got to make those labels much more precise about what they really are talking about and call it out. Okay, that's what I keep saying about. So thank you.
Yeah, but one of the things with fascism, and I'm not saying it's not fascism. I'm using the word authoritarianism.
Yeah. That's much. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah, it doesn't trigger off.
Yeah, it's not so much of a label as of what is central, I think, to the conflict in the world, which is the conflict between authoritarian forms of government and democratic forms of government. Um, did you have something you wanted to add, Mom?
Well, isn't there a court case waiting for him right now in the New York court regarding his finances? And you know that women accused him of rape. He's had like 28 women accuse him of things, and some of them rape. So I don't know how he can get away with that.
Well, I think he's going to lose whatever support he had in the business community. Meaning there may be one or two of his real cheerleaders, the pillow guy, and a few people like that, and a few people that are in businesses that are connected with Christian faith, and maybe some people in other faith communities. But at some point, business ought to have learned a lesson from the COVID situation. When people are sick and when people are afraid of each other, every business that depends on bringing people together is in trouble. And the whole idea that to have people protect each other by staying home, therefore not going out shopping and so forth and so on, that's a second round. That's, people are sick, and we're about to hit that. We're going to have no new bill from Congress, and come the end of December, a lot of what has been supporting the economy on an everyday basis is going to disappear unless we get some sort of bailout program from our government. And so to me, I think COVID's going to teach us some lessons about why we need government, why we need healthcare for everybody. That's certainly one of the things that countries with any reasonable sense have decided a long time ago, because it's healthy people and educated people are the secret to prosperity. Not everybody has to have a PhD, but people have to be able to do the things that allow the economy to work. And we just haven't made that as possible as we should have.
Right.
Yeah.
Businesses should be aware of incompetence at the top, and failing to deal with this COVID situation is costing them money big time.
Yeah.
That may might understand that. Yeah.
So go ahead, Margot. Did you have something?
Oh, no, I was just saying that we got to help them. Maybe if we do put it in monetary ways, they would see that. But even people don't have to have like college degrees. They just have a basic good education for everybody, and people can try different things and find what they are good at. And it shouldn't just be for profit. All this stuff that's for profit, even Medicare, healthcare. I mean, healthcare, we're probably the only country that has healthcare for profit. And so if we could maybe emphasize this whole thing about what is this whole profit mode, who cares about the stock market? We got to get real people to have the money. And that, I think, if we could try to help people understand that, they might be able to get some grassroots support and things like that. I think that we just it's just telling them, all your money's going. We should really not give Kentucky any money. They don't pay any taxes, and they've got all the bad things happening there. They shouldn't be helped. I don't think anybody who denies them the virus or doesn't, they should just let them go. Okay, who died? Then go ahead, concentrate them in one place and let them infect each other and let them die. I don't think they should get any help.
40 years ago, when I was in graduate school, there was a young man who, in the economics department at Michigan State, who was willing to stand under a tree with a hammer and sickle flag and make a case for communism and socialism. And his solution was, you send all the rich people to a desert island with all their money. You just get them out of the equation. And,
absolutely right.
It is really interesting, the whole idea that money is speech. That is just a terrible idea if you want one person, one vote democracy. It just It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a-
Robin, here, here.
Yeah, a lot of this is the result of the
Robin,
Supreme
Robin.
Court and their decisions, and over time, how we've been uh, sort of like a frog in a boiling pot. They've been
Right.
turning up the heat for a long time already. And
Well, and I mean, these decisions going way back, these are theoretical decisions. The whole idea of a variety of things that become precedent. If you've been watching, there's been some more revelation about how this idea that the president is not able to be brought to court when he's president. That came out of the Nixon administration. And Rachel Maddow's new book traces how Nixon worked with the people that were going after Agnew to be sure that Agnew could be taken to court, but the president couldn't. And so there were ideas agreed to then that just became practice. They didn't make any sense. And so precedent is one of those things about courts that are really maybe something that we need to think about. I mean,
our whole system has to be changed politically, economically, socially.
Yeah.
After the last 4 years with Trump, it's all come out, and you need to do something.
Well, and we have to find a cure to the fact that singing is dangerous. That is a big problem, because singing is good for you, and it's very good for groups of people. You may know that Wisconsin has this group called the Solidarity Sing Along, and I retired a little before that started, and most of my new friends came out of singing at the Capitol, and they're still at it on Zoom 2 days a week. So it's a very powerful thing to sing together.
very good. So, but before we do that, we have a commercial break. Okay, so we have a sponsor.
Sure.
You know, it's like, you ever see those ads on MSNBC for Donald Trump, and you wonder why the heck do they put those ads?
Yes.
What's the purpose of that? So I don't know why this group wants to advertise here, but here you go.
All right.
New from KKK Tell, it's the 2020 GOP Christmas album. You get 22 songs that make you shudder to think this was once the party of Lincoln. Hits like
I'm dreaming of a white country, just like George Wallace used to know.
Donnie the Snowflake.
Donnie the Snowflake, he was born without a soul, with his corn-cob hair and his spray-on tan, and two sons who were assholes.
You're a mean one, Mr. Trump.
You're a mean one, Mr. Trump. A real legit blowhole. You're as racist as a Klansman. You're an ad for birth control, Mr. Trump. Wouldn't surprise me if you're on Vladimir Putin's payroll.
Holly jolly illness.
A holly jolly illness. It's the COVID we all fear. I don't know if I'll live to see Joe could be dead by end of year.
Build the wall.
Build the wall with taxpayer money. Fa la 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 la. Mexico ain't paying, that's funny. Fa la 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 la.
Rudy the yellow-toothed lawyer.
Rudy the yellow-toothed lawyer had a way of telling lies, all while his face was sweaty and covered up in black hair dye.
And many, many more than you can possibly stand. This holiday season, give the gift that keeps on taking. The 2020 GOP Christmas album, only from KKK Tell.
Terrific.
All right. So,
Thank you.
so that brings us to a discussion that I want to have around racism and white supremacy. nationalism, whether it's really a good idea for us to label Christians as Nazis,
No.
and whether what we're talking about here is demonic human evil, meaning even if it's not a supernatural thing, it's what was described in scripture when they describe the demonic. It's the forces, the authorities, the powers that control the world. And in that time, that was the Roman Empire, and to a lesser extent, the political religious leaders in Jerusalem. So I'm wondering what you guys think. How are we going to solve this problem with racism and white supremacy and nationalism?
I'm not going to solve it tonight because I'm going to go to the other party. It involves, so I'm one of the states that's involved in one of the others that are related to this. So thank you very much. I have really enjoyed this. This has been great.
All right. Thank you for coming, Gerald.
Yeah, good. I'll drop you a note.
Okay.
Rich, thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. So any comments?
Well, you know, the white nationals were the first ones who supported Trump, white supremacy. And now the Proud Boys are out on Washington, in Washington, along with the other protesters, protesting the Trump law. So, Trump's still supporting them, and he won't say anything against them because he actually won himself, I think.
You got anything for us, Margot, on that?
Oh, it's a big subject. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, I didn't. Well, it was a big subject because what I don't like is when people say, "Oh, the devil made me do it." I believe that people make choices about what they do. They can do good or they can do evil. They can believe they're a good person and do bad things, and then they're a bad person. They might think they're a terrible person but do good things, and they're a good person. So we got to kind of make people take personal responsibility for what they do, not say, "Oh, I'm doing it for this other abstract reason," but really hold them to your action had this consequence, it hurt somebody else. Is that what you're trying to say? Is there are some funny things coming out that are saying that they're doing the GOP Jesus, or they're doing the thing that's completely opposite of what Jesus said, and yet they're saying doing what Jesus said. It's making it very, very confusing to people because they're like, what? We didn't know that he was saying these other things. So I think people should show by their example what they believe rather than what they say they believe. Because if it hurts other people, it's not a very good thing, so they might be giving a bad impression of whatever religion they're trying to promulgate, something like that, that's what I'm trying to say. Making personal actions speak louder than words.
Right. And sort of the idea that I'm getting at is that this is not so much of a disembodied spirit telling people what to do as much as it is a collective spirit. The collective activity of humanity, of human beings in a that in other words, Trump and the policies he promotes and the Republican parties are an expression of something that's in the human heart that is expressed through the political process. And then we describe those effects, the execution he's doing right now. He's trying to start a race war. While he's letting top level criminals off and pardoning people who have committed terrible crimes, he's executing minorities who maybe committed a crime. So the injustice is palpable in that situation. And his whole, putting children in cages, all of that and his very election is the result of some form of evil. And when we talk about evil, we're talking about evil like the Holocaust or evil like torture and war. And these are all collective human activities and expressions. There's also individual evil, but I think when we look at the demonic and want to describe what's actually going on, evil or demonic is pretty descriptive of what that system has brought us. You have anything to?
And yet these people, the ones who are doing these things, are accusing the Democrats of being demonic, and they're paranoid about what Democrats do.
You have anything to add, Denise?
I was just going to say, what's bizarre is the Christians don't even see themselves doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
the Christians?
Yeah, that's right. They don't. And they need to be made aware of that. And that's what this battle over words is about, is making people aware of what they're actually doing. I was in a forum and they were talking about mission and whether that word was going to be accepted or not. But anyway, that's a different subject. It's not related. But you know what? I just got a message. We got a message from King. We got a message responding to Donald Trump's statement to us. So this statement has some international implications. We have the late, great King George III is going to respond to Trump's statement. So let's, let me do this first here. Okay, here we go. Let's see if it plays. Here we go.
A message from the king, a message from the king, a message from the
king. You say the price of your lies not a price that you're willing to pay. You cry, throw a fit in the West Wing when you have to say bye-bye. And why so sad? You really thought you would be able to sue this away. Now you're getting so mad. Remember your utter derangement got you canned. You won't be back. Soon you'll see the worst president in history. You won't be back, time will tell. You will spend your days inside a cell. Oceans rise, empires fall. This is your presidency's curtain call. And when push comes to shove, they will send the bloody Secret Service to remind you that you're done. Da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da. You say you won't concede in the election front. Joe's right. Would you shut up, man? Oh my God. Admit that you're the loser. You've always been a loser. A vile, pathetic loser. A royal, spoiled loser. Forever and ever. And ever and ever and ever. You won't be back like before. You have fought the fight and lost the war. For our love, for our praise. And we'll hate you till our dying days. When you're gone, we'll be glad. So go tweet about it, God, you're sad. 'Cause when push comes to shove, I will grab you by the pussy and drag your sorry orange ass across the White House lawn. To remind you that you're done. Da 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 da. Da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da da. Everybody.
Da 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 da. folks. Well, I think it's that came on pretty fast, but I think that it's time for us to say first of all, to say goodbye to Donald Trump.
Goodbye, Donald Trump.
And then to sing goodbye to Donald Trump, and then to say goodbye to one another for tonight. So let's
Farewell, go to hell, au revoir. Shamble on, cause the con's finally over. Go tweet, crying in your bed, and repeat that until you're dead. Yes, you had your chance and you failed. So fly like a puppy or a reindeer. Vamoose, cut it loose, trim your sails. Because you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Everybody knows you're full of crap, a shitty, shady schmuck who's shifty. Will you ever see your wife again? I think I'd call it 50-50. Gotta say, I don't think I will miss you. Time for you to enter the abyss. You want to take a jacket curtains with you, cause the voters have dismissed you. Pack your bags, take a hike, bon voyage. Time to go be a ride. Had such a swing and a miss that you actually lost to this. Get lost, go kick rocks, fade away. Better storm out the door before you're dragged off. Adieu, toodaloo, and good day. The nation made an easy choice. Now we won't have to hear your voice or hear your unconvincing lies about your hand and penis size. But hey, aside from all the jokes, you really harmed a lot of folks. So lots of luck, JK, get fucked, you evil jag off.
Who was that? That was wonderful.